Valerie, and I chose the Emmett Till murder trial for my jury task. So, Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam were the two defendants of the trial. So, Roy Bryant was married to Carolyn Bryant, who was the store clerk that Emmett Till asked out. So, Carolyn Bryant felt threatened because he was trying to get her to go out with him. And so then she later told her husband, and he was very furious. So him and Millam, who is his half-brother, along with a few other men who they never really figured out, were actually part of it, and they together commit the crime. So the two men, primarily, they kidnapped Emmett, and then they beat him up, shot him in the head, and then threw him in the Tallahatchie River. So, I didn't find the childhoods of either one of the defendants. So, yeah, I don't have that information, but they did admit to killing Emmett Till after the case had already closed and couldn't be reopened. So, they were guilty, but after the case was closed. That's when we found that out. So the defense attorneys, there were 5 of them. There was Jesse Brayland, Caleb Carlton, Robert Henderson, Joseph Kellum, John Witten. So those were the 5 defense attorneys who were in favor of Bryant and Millam. So the prosecution attorney was Gerald Chatham, and he was trying to prove that the 2 defendants were guilty. So there were 3 major witnesses. There was Amanda Bradley, and she basically said that she saw 4 white men entering and exiting a barn on the plantation the morning after Emmett was abducted. And Ad Reed testified the morning after Emmett was abducted, and he said that he walked past the barn at the Sheridan plantation and saw Leslie Millam, who was J.W. Millam's brother. So he saw him and another white man. And Willie Reed, who is Ad Reed's grandson, also testified and said that he heard beating and yelling coming from a tool shed near the barn on the plantation. He also saw J.W. Millam leave the shed and get a drink of water. So, I said there was a questionable aspect of the trial because, in my opinion, there was sufficient evidence that proved that the defendants were guilty. But the jury was prejudiced as it was an all-white, all-male jury. Clearly, they were all supportive of Bryant and Millam. Another piece of evidence was that the physician that testified never physically examined the body, but he still supported the argument that had been made that the body couldn't have been Emmett Till's because it was in the water longer than he went missing, supposedly. So the jury ruled Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam not guilty, and they dropped the murder and kidnapping charges. So after the verdict, the public was outraged, and they attended rallies protesting the verdict. Many people boycotted businesses of those who were involved, and some employees quit their jobs on the fields. So, in my opinion, I said that the defendants should have been found guilty because prior to them admitting that they actually did it, there was plenty of evidence, such as the testimony of Willie Reed and how he heard the beating and the yelling. So, he heard that, and he saw that firsthand. Someone was getting beat up the night that Emmett was abducted. And also Amanda Bradley, who said she saw 4 white men entering and exiting the barn on the plantation, the same plantation that those other witnesses were talking about, the morning after Emmett was abducted. So, this evidence, the jury, was presented with this, but they still ignored it, and they didn't take it into consideration. The day after Till was reported missing, and they found and identified his body in the Tallahatchie River. However, the sheriffs were saying that that couldn't have possibly been his body because it was in there for a long period of time. Supposedly that's what they said. But I think that the trial was unfair because the evidence provided was just not taken into consideration. So I believe that the judicial system in the U.S. is unfair. Emmett Till's murder case was presented with so much evidence that proved the guilt of the defendants. However, a sheriff named Dogan, he allegedly helped pick jurors for the trial that would likely favor an acquittal of the accused. So he was trying to get people who were biased and who were favoring the accused so that they wouldn't be found guilty. So according to one of the defense attorneys, Dogan sent word to the jurors while they were deliberating to stall the verdict in order to make it look good. So in my opinion, this sounds like they already had their mindset on what they were going to do, but they were stalling so that it wouldn't seem like they were, biased or anything. But based on the evidence, it was clear that the jury was prejudiced and favored the accused. And it seems like the jury already decided the outcome of the trial before they even started. So for these reasons, the judicial system is not fair and is wrongly abused.